Aaron Beelner, and Eric B. And you're listening to the Diary of a Little Man's Podcast. All right, another episode of the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. Took a little break last week. The last episode we had Dugan Bridges, really fun guy.
Yeah.
A lot of interesting things to talk about. But today we're going on a different route. We're going to talk about amusement parks, summer vacations, and I'm wearing a shirt that says The Goonies.
Yes,
See
indeed.
where The Goonies and the Stranger Things tie into place. But first, let's go get this started. I am Eric B.
And I'm Aaron Beelner.
And we are the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. Mr. Beelner, how are you doing?
Much better. And yeah, we had a hiatus last week. I wasn't feeling phenomenal, but I'm on the mend, so things are good.
Good to hear.
How's the West Coast?
West Coast is as West Coast as it can be. We're having a recall election here in San Francisco. They're trying to get rid of the district attorney who hasn't done anything in the past 3 years. So, we'll see how that goes.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
You had a graduation, right?
Yeah.
How was that?
My older boy graduated from high school and had to sit down and speak to him and tell him about what's the next expectation in life. So
Yeah.
we'll see how
The future.
he listens. Yeah. Yeah.
There's a lot of things out there.
There is.
When you think about, you know what? Can we jump into that a little bit?
Yeah, go for it.
Think about when you graduated from high school, that timeline, and how things are substantially different. And yes, Every generation has new unknowns and, what the heck is tomorrow going to bring.
Yeah.
And it really is, wild right now. In some ways maybe awesome, some ways not so awesome.
Yeah, you're right. I told him, hey, when I graduated from high school, class of 1990, from the same high school he went to, I told him I didn't have the internet to search for a job or look for a new job. You have the opportunity to look on the internet, see if there's a new job available. We didn't have that. We were old school. We had to go through the newspapers and
your access.
Yeah.
Do that stuff without even leaving your home.
Yeah.
Without even leaving your room, your kitchen, your dining room, wherever. If you got a laptop and an internet connection, and I think that's pretty awesome in many ways.
Yeah.
I do think that the one thing about, and we've talked about this, you and I, this is episode 11, and we've never met in person, and that is amazing that, we're doing this.
Yes.
And we have access. You're on the other side of the country.
Yeah.
I'm on, you're on that side. And we're doing this. And think about that as a student straight out of high school, whatever you're doing, college search, job search, you can do a truckload.
Yeah.
Without leaving your home.
Yeah.
It limits some of the personability of it, or the personal aspect. Because I do think there's something about meeting people, in person and making the first impression, if you will.
Yeah, yeah.
But it's pretty impressive too that you can access anything and everything.
Just even him trying to apply for colleges. I remember when I applied for colleges, it was whatever college, whoever sent me something, I'm filling the paperwork out and I'm sending it out. And I wait to hear back from them. He was online, applied for the colleges he wanted to go to, hit send, and then they would mail him. If they didn't like him or they didn't accept him, they would email him saying that, sorry, da-da-da-da. But if he got acceptance letters, they would mail him. It's like, God, we never went through that.
No.
I had like this thick of college paperwork that I had to fill out just to try to get into a college I wanted to get into.
Well, and that was the thing. There was so much, and again, it wasn't like it was the, hardest part of the world or anything when you're that age. It feels like it is. It feels, we talked about this. I think you and I have talked about this. Everybody does about this. When you're in the moment, whatever you're facing seems like the most insurmountable thing.
Yeah.
Then when you get past it or you move down the road in life, you're like, oh, that was cakewalk compared to
exactly.
I just remember you'd fill out so much paperwork for just one, and then you'd have to start all over again for each college. You know what I mean? They had their generic questions, their general format, but there were specifics to each school.
Yeah.
Trying to woo them if it's a one specific school that has a certain field you're interested in, or it's another school that has an emphasis in whatever area. You're definitely trying to woo each individual school. I just remember being over it. I remember, you haven't even started college and you're
over it. Yeah.
I'm just tired of filling out stuff.
So. I joked around with my coworker. I said, when I went to college and filled out my college forms, I was like, oh, my hand hurts from all the writing. I go, these kids these days are like, oh, my thumb hurts from all the texting. And messaging.
Just texting it. They're doing everything. They can do it on their phones.
They can do it on their phones, exactly. So it's different different era, but same outcome.
Did you take? You get things fueled in me, man, and I start thinking. Did you take the SAT?
I did.
Okay.
I scored 1250 on the SAT.
See, and we didn't take the SAT. We took the ACT.
Okay. So,
this
year, because of COVID in California, kids weren't required to take the SAT if they wanted to go to a state college.
Oh, wow.
And it had to be a California state college. So, and that was because of COVID. So if you're a California resident and you wanted to go to a state, you didn't have to take the SAT, but your transcripts had to be a C or better for school.
Okay.
So, one of those kids who just scores like F's and D's, they couldn't just go to state because they wanted to. So they gave them limitations, which was cool because, back then when we were in school, and I'm pretty sure you're the same way, everybody's like, oh, I got to study for the SAT. And kids were like determined to get to a good school because of the SAT scores. And I'm like, whether I go to state or university, it's going to be the same education that I'm getting. I'm just paying a little bit more for the university part of it. So,
Right. Do you have, and I'm very aloof on everything that's, offered in California's, academically, does the state offer, Georgia has a lottery funded scholarship program where it's called the Hope Scholarship. And if you leave or finish your high school years with a 3.0 or higher, it's basically covers your tuition to any of the state schools. Okay. Wow. I think you can get so much covered to private schools, but it's not all of it, of course, because it's a totally different, animal. And so if you have a 3.0 or higher, and you apply for the Hope Scholarship, then it basically covers your tuition. Now, don't get me wrong. Yeah. There's how many more expenses involved nowadays. And not only that, they have skyrocketed. I mean, going to college now, your first year of college, when we were in college, it was like that was your first year of med school or law school expenses. And now just your first year of an undergraduate degree is quite a number. So does California offer anything like that with a lottery funded situation? Or
there is, but from what I heard, you have to apply for certain scholarships, and some of them I haven't heard anything about the lottery one where they pay for half of the stuff, but there is things, and I told my boy that go ahead and apply for whatever scholarship you can get.
Absolutely,
just because. Maybe one scholarship will pay for the books. Maybe the other scholarship will pay for the tuition.
Apply for everything.
Apply for everything. So that's what he ended up doing. He just whatever he can get and whatever and it also depended on what school he decided to go to. So he decided to go the junior college route just because he's not sure what he wants to do. And
I think that's a really intelligent.
And I said
move.
I went the junior college route. I ended up graduating. With a degree at San Francisco State University. So there's nothing wrong with doing what you want to do.
No.
And I
think
him,
that more people should do that.
Yeah. I mean, he told me straight up, it's like, I don't want to waste money going into a state and figuring out later on that I don't want to do what is there.
Well, you can get your general requirements finished at a junior college for a lot, get those 2 years done.
Yeah.
Then you can transfer those credits. If it's a state school, those credits will transfer.
Yeah.
That's great. Yeah, I think I think a lot more people are doing that. And I think that's commendable. I think it's an intelligent move. I think there was a time where, you're going to junior college, but everything is so ridiculously expensive.
Yeah, it is.
And for the sake of being expensive, and if you can get the same product for less money, Why would you
Why would you?
pay?
Exactly.
It's these schools are
Yeah.
outrageous. They're outrageous.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
I actually went to a private college and did all 4 years at a private college. And those numbers don't even come close to now at a state school.
Yeah.
I mean, they just don't come close. It's crazy to think that way.
Yeah.
So, and I went to a private college not because I was all that in a bag of chips. I was just I was looking for a certain thing. I think we talked about this. I was looking for a certain offering in what I wanted to do. Plus, I wasn't looking, I came from, like I've said, a small town of like 1,200.
Yeah.
I didn't want to go to a 35,000 plus. That seemed intimidating at the time.
Yeah, it was.
35,000 plus students. So, I went to a very small school. But anyway, best of luck to your son and everything the future holds. So
thank you.
I noticed your Goonies shirt, sir.
Yes.
Wearing the Goonies, and that was a cult classic in the 80s.
Yes.
What was it? Like the Goonies and the Breakfast Club were the big one.
Yes.
And what's another? 16 Candles.
16 Candles. What else? I mean, I don't know if you were into Top Gun back then, but Top Gun was definitely an 80s flick that everybody watched. I was all over that.
Cool. Yeah, I thought that movie was cool. I have not seen the new one.
Oh,
have you seen the new one?
I have.
You have?
I have.
Is it worth it?
The nostalgia factor and the story writing and how they attacked the first one, the first one to the second one, to me was brilliant.
Really?
That's what I was trying to think to myself. 36 years, how are they going to tie both of these in?
Yeah.
And remember, this was supposed to be released in 2020.
Right.
Because of the pandemic. Because of COVID, they did it. And just the fact that they were able to tie the first one to the second one without giving spoilers to me was like, wow. The nostalgia factor was definitely there. And, you can't say anything about Tom Cruise. Tom Cruise is Tom Cruise, and he'll give it 110% with his acting. Right. He was definitely there. He definitely showed up. And then again, the story writing behind it was just like, I was like, God, these story writers, they deserve to do another, if they wanted to do a third one, they deserve to do a third one.
They could pull it off.
Yes.
Okay. That is quite a gap. 6 years. Wow.
Yeah.
And you wait, like you said, with the release, it was supposed to be released in 2020. I think that there are a lot of films, not a lot, but a good handful of films that tried. I know I was in one of them that tried to, did release during that time. They thought they had gotten past the hump, if you will, of the pandemic, because things kept getting pushed back and back and back. And Top Gun holding out until this year. As much as you want your product out there, and every second it's not out there, it's not making money, which means it's costing money to sit there. Sometimes it pays off.
It does.
And it sounds like that did very well. I can see it. Yeah. I mean, I can see the numbers of the box office. It's doing very, very well. So, but you have your Goonies shirt, and we were talking about this before the show. Sorry, we're trying to catch up on Stranger Things. And we fell off. We saw the first season, and then
what are they now? Season 4, right? They're season 4.
I think season 4 is out, and they've got, as of right now, they're going to do at least season 5. I mean, there's talk of, I don't know if there's talk of anything past season 5, but as of right now, season 5.
Okay. So I'm caught up. So I just haven't watched season 4.
Yeah, don't tell me.
No, I haven't watched season 4 yet. I haven't watched it yet.
Okay, we're in season 3, and so I'm not caught up. We got to get through that and then hit season 4. But we were talking about the show. A couple of things. Those kids are getting older, obviously.
Very much older. Yeah.
So you can only do so much with makeup and what have you, but before you go, hey, these are adults playing 14 and 15-year-olds now. So it'll be interesting to see what season 5 is. I know, of course, only season 4 is out, but it'll be interesting what season 5 is. But I was talking to my wife about this, and we were talking about the formula of those kids in Stranger Things. And I said, it reminds me of the same formula with the kids of the Goonies. Yeah. And who was all involved. And to the point of, there were the main ones in the Goonies. What were there, like 4 or 5 of them? I think your shirt. Yeah, Chunk and Mouth and Data, and I can't remember the last kid.
What was Rudy's name? I forget what his name was. I'm gonna have to excuse me. Go ahead. I'm gonna IMDb this because
isn't Mouth, who played Mouth?
Let me see. Mouth.
What's his name?
Was played by, it's not Jeff. Corey Feldman. Corey Feldman. Yes.
Yeah,
yes.
Feldman is Mouth. And I can't remember what Chunk's actor's name is.
Jeff Cohen. Jeff Cohen is Chunk.
And then who played Data?
Data is Ki-Hugh Kwan. Kwan.
And you told me, right? He's in Everything Everywhere All at Once.
Yes, he's a co-star.
I gotta see the movie because I love Michelle Yeoh.
It's coming out this week, I think. I think it was supposed to come out this week, from what I remember. I know it was early June. So.
Okay, but so who's the last kid in the Goonies?
That's Sean Astin. That's the main guy.
That's right.
Sean Astin.
Here's the kicker. Sean's in Stranger Things.
Yes.
And so it's kind of interesting. That's another connection. I didn't even think of that.
Yes.
This formula is nothing new. And not to underscore the Stranger Things. I love it. And we talked about this too before the show. There's nothing new. It's just either stolen or borrowed. Nobody wants to say it's stolen. So they go, oh yeah, we borrowed that idea.
We took the idea.
But there's different perspectives, of course. And I'm guilty of this. You write with hopefully with a different perspective or a new perspective. But for a lot of it, you are in the same formula because the formula pays.
Yeah.
People want to see that formula.
Yeah.
And people go, well, how come we don't try this and this and this? And every once in a while they get wild and adventurous and they do try new concepts. And sometimes they hit.
Yeah.
And sometimes they bomb. But more often than not, you see those formulas come back.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so the idea of these kids going on this adventure, trying to solve something, trying to conquer something. I mean, it's a little more sci-fi now with the Stranger Things because that's what people love. The idea of, they keep mentioning in the series like zombies and stuff. Well, the zombie world, exploded. We've got The Walking Dead that's been out for how many years?
Yeah.
I mean, people love that stuff. They live for it. But I remember the Goonies and I was really, as a kid, I was really intrigued with that whole story. And I loved Data. I loved all the gadgets.
Data, yeah. This was released in 1984. And I remember.
I was 10.
Yeah, I remember me and the group of guys, after this came out, my cousin who lives in Daly City, and I spent a lot of my times in Daly City, he had a little backyard. And the backyard was full of, rubbish. It was just everything that a kid can get in trouble going into. We decided we were going to come up with a name. We couldn't be the Goonies because it was already the Goonies.
Right.
And the best time to go out there was at night. So we called ourselves the Midnight Slugs.
The Midnight Slugs.
The Midnight Slugs.
Awesome.
And we did, we tried to do every adventure that they could do. But we also we had that one kid who was trying to be like Data, but instead of the gadgets, he had like fireworks. And I mean, we lived that little Goonie adventure till some neighbor decided like, hey, you guys are making too much noise in my backyard. you guys
right.
gotta leave.
Right. But how cool was that? How fun was that? And just that experience with your friends.
You know what I try to tell the kids these days is I understand the video games and I understand the computer concepts, and you guys are lucky with Netflix and all this, whatever streaming services you have. But the ideas and the dreamers came from our generation because we were out sitting on a bike, sitting on a corner, trying to think of something fun to do. And then by the time you thought about what we're going to do, it was like time for dinner. So you're like, okay, let's do this tomorrow.
And then the next day, we got to come back the next day.
Yeah.
And see, it's interesting you say that because, and this leads into, I think it's a great segue into the summer. My summers, I was raised on a farm and a little guy, and I spent a lot of time like creating things with whatever I could find.
Yes.
Much to my father's chagrin, whatever I could find that he had, in the maintenance sheds or on the farm. I loved basketball.
Yeah.
I love basketball. And I know that's crazy. A man that's 4 foot 3 inches tall, but I love basketball. And I had created my own little arena, if you will,
Okay.
in the hay shed.
Nice.
So literally in this open hay shed, which was just a cover, and then panels around the outside of it with big like telephone pole posts that held the roof up, and then it had, and what it was is you literally would put hay in there, and then the cattle could touch, they could get in, put their heads in to eat from
Okay.
all four sides.
Okay.
Now this is going to sound a little ridiculous. It's not Deliverance, I promise. It's not Ned Beatty. The cattle were my spectators, so I would go and play basketball, and after, cattle are very skittish.
Yeah.
Cows are very skittish. You've heard of cow tipping, which is
Yeah.
one of the most ridiculous things I've ever heard of. But they're very spooked and skittish creatures around humans. You have to earn their trust, and so they knew who I was. I mean, they were used to this being showing up in the hay shed to play basketball, and then over time, even with the ball bouncing around, whatever, they would stick their heads in and watch.
Oh, wow. Wow.
And they were honestly, they're probably looking to eat. They were like, why is this idiot in
Where's
here?
my food? Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, because my father had stopped using that for that purpose because they didn't feed them like that anymore by that time. And so he would, he had it all cleared out. And then I had a basketball hoop put up there, and it was a riot. And every once in a while, very rarely, every once in a while, it had the panels or the wood slats around the outside of this were high enough where if the ball bounced a funny bounce off the rim or whatever, it would go outside of those panels into the cattle yards.
Oh, wow,
so then
okay.
I'd have to crawl through, be careful, because of course I'm not that big of a guy. And cattle, like I said, they get running.
Yeah.
I'm screwed. If they come after me, I'm going to get stampeded. And I really don't want to be part of that mess. So I would carefully go out, grab the ball, climb back through the slats, and go back into it. But I say all that to when you were talking about, the adventures you would have as the Midnight Slugs. You created stuff. You built stuff out of nothing.
Yeah.
You did things and had fun with them. And we didn't have this thing. We didn't have, computers to stare at.
Yeah.
I remember the computer we did have was the green, font, and that was about it. And there was no graphics or whatever.
The little flashing.
The little flashing cursor box.
Cursor. Yeah.
That was it.
Yeah.
And so that wasn't very intriguing.
No.
Yeah, I spend a lot of time in the summers outside. Actually, my sister and I were just talking about this and preaching a little bit to our own kids, our daughters. We both have daughters, about how important it is to put down your technology and get out there. And in the summers, I hated this, Eric. My mom had a big garden. It was awesome. Yeah. But to work in the big garden stunk. It sucked. Hot.
Yeah.
Picking, although we would get in trouble because we would pick the peas and eat them right out of the garden, which you got to be careful. You can't eat too many peas or you'll be raw peas or you'll be in the bathroom.
Yeah.
But anyway, we'd come back in with a lot less than what we probably should have. My mother would be like, how many did you eat? I mean, we're supposed to pick those and get in here. And so we ran the garden. And then we had like not a sandbox, but like just a literally large pile of sand.
Yeah.
Played in as kids and had, dug through. And I actually had, this is crazy to think about. I didn't think about this for how long. My father had served in Vietnam, and he had a little trench shovel. And he still had that trench shovel, and it fit me because, that was those trench spades like this big, they had it in their pack, and it bent, you could dig. It was like it could become a hole or whatever.
Yeah.
You do multiple things with it. And I had that shovel, and I would dig with it and then trench with it and build different things and little castle areas and places for my cars and stuff and whatever. So, I mean, that imagination, you're right. The dreamers and the builders and the creators, that's where that came from.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
I'm not saying you can't build great things with a phone, but the imagination runs wild when you have very little, just a few things.
I mean, there's a difference between what we are, and I call our generations, we have our names, the X and Z's, but I call our generations the generations that got our hands dirty, because we got our hands dirty. We had to get in there. Absolutely. Like you said, you got in the dirt to build an imagination of what Aaron was building, right?
Yeah.
We did that as kids. We will go out. The Midnight Slugs will be like, we're looking for an artifact that was lost 100 years ago. There was no artifact. But the fact that we were looking for something and digging in these little spots and getting dirty, and we were like, we were like, what if we did find something, from 100 years ago?
I know, isn't that awesome?
Yeah. So it's like there was there, but these kids these days, it's all about what I can find on my phone, from delivering food to watching a TV show. It's everything that is done on their phone. So,
and you know what? There's an angle to that too that I and would love to share. I remember my mother going, "Get out of the house, go outside, go play, go, just go." And we'd be and yet we had the safety that we could go out. You lived in a city, you could still, but you still had, if you were with your friends. Nowadays, with everything that's going on, there's I hate to say it, but there's that little subtextual fear of, God, if our kids go out, what if something stupid happens? I mean, we all think about it. We all do. Choice.
Yeah, we all do.
It's now part of our lives, unfortunately.
Yeah.
But that was never a concern.
No.
When we were, you'd go out, you'd hang out. We'd go out in the morning and may not come home until dinner.
Yeah, that's how it was. Yeah, that's how it was.
And it wasn't like they were, my mother wasn't going, "Hey, what's going on?" I mean, we were on the farm, granted, but, she wasn't like, "Where were you?" or any of that. I mean, sometimes they were like, "Oh, you came back that early?"
Yeah, go back out. Yeah, exactly.
So I feel for the kids nowadays who don't get to have that opportunity because they're, they are locked up a little bit.
And we can tell by look at the obesity ratio from our generation to the generation now.
Yes.
It's
and no joke about that. Not criticizing that. It almost stands to reason.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like, you make fun of guys who are just, they call them the indoor guys or whatever nicknames they give them, because all they do all day is they sit in front of their computer, they play video games, they watch whatever shows they watch. Their lifestyle is in front of a computer, and they're not athletically bound whatsoever. The only sports they know is whatever they see on the computer. So back then, you're right. Our parents would be like, "Hey, it's 10 in the morning, do this and go outside, ride your bike." My mom and dad bought me a bike in the middle of San Francisco just because they wanted me to go out and ride my bike. And I'm like,
did you go all over San Francisco?
No, I had a 4-block ratio that I could explore.
Okay, so you had the perimeter. You had a 4-block perimeter, and as long as you stayed in that, you were good.
I was good. And then,
but that's still a decent amount of.
It is. It was. I mean, from where I'm at right now to the next block, that's a long block. And I'm saying it takes up 3 blocks. That's how long that block is. So just to get from here to there, when we were kids riding our bike, that was already like, forget the 4 blocks. We're just going over here.
Right.
And then, I live by Japantown. And of course, that 4-block ratio, the cutoff was Japantown. So I could never go into Japantown. Without their permission. Of course, if I asked, they said, yes, go ahead, but don't bring your bike, walk over there, because people would try to steal your bike back then. So my mom and dad, they were like, get out of here. And it was worse with my aunt when I lived in Daly City during the summertime, because she sounded like your mom, and the way she wanted us to do things, she wanted to do chores, she wanted us to do this, she wanted to do that. And by the time we were done with breakfast and done with chores, I'm saying 9:30, close to 10 o'clock, go ahead, go out, go have fun. But you guys got to be back by 12 to go eat lunch.
Okay. Yeah. I have to share this summer adventure story. They're going to start popping a lot. This was actually, this was in a town, city, named Iowa City. And Iowa City is where the University of Iowa is. And from where my parents were, my farm, hometown is about 4.5 hours east and a little south. So southeast. My hometown is like in the very northwest corner of Iowa. Iowa City was central and then like on the eastern third of Iowa.
Okay.
So I say that I went and spent a week at my cousin's, which to me was the coolest thing at that time. I think I was in seventh grade, sixth or seventh grade. Okay. And my mom's next sister in line above her has three boys, or, and we were all very close in age and loved hanging out and doing things and playing whatever. And so I spent a week at my cousin's. And you were talking about chores with your aunt, and the responsibilities before you could leave, before you go do anything. Always had to do, and that was ingrained in us. In order to have fun, you've got to be able to accomplish these tasks and whatever, and then you can go do your thing. And it was a payoff. It was a payoff to go out and get on your bike, play, whatever. Well, one day, at that time, both of my aunt and her husband are now retired. She worked, she's a nurse, registered nurse. And my uncle worked for what was called Yoder Feeds. And he was the manager of a feed corporation and plant in Iowa City, or right outside of Iowa City. I'm sorry. So we had our list of chores.
Yeah.
And then we got to bike. We all had our bicycles. We got to bike to the bowling alley.
Nice.
And play and go bowl for 2 hours. Well, we shirked the chores and decided we would go to the bowling alley and then come back and get everything done before they got home. Yeah, this is a little Goonie-esque. But anyway, more this is like a little nerdy-esque.
Yeah.
So we did that, had a blast at the bowling alley, got on our bikes, got back, and had locked ourselves out of the house.
Oh no, I hear that. I heard that coming.
Here's the thing. Not a big deal. We could have been outside hanging out, whatever, but everything that we were supposed to accomplish before we left was still undone inside that house. Now, had we had any brains whatsoever, but we were young boys and, what have you, we would have just said, all right, we're going to take the verbal punishment for this. We'll get in the house when they get there. We'll just hang here. We're fine. We can play, in the backyard, hang out, whatever. We have like baseball mitts and stuff, throw the ball around, whatever. We felt the need to get into that house, to get everything done.
Oh, God.
Before my aunt and uncle got home. It led to checking doors, windows. The end result, to this day, the end result was behind the house, in the back side of the house, there were the basement windows. They were rectangular, the easement windows. And we pressed on it thinking we could because it just had the little latch that we could, work it. We could get it open. And the window broke. That led to, it cracked in how many different places? That led to breaking the window out completely. So it's breaking inwards.
Yeah.
Falling into the basement on the tile. Thank God it was like a laminate floor, tile floor, not like carpeting, which would have been a complete mess. Broke into that floor. We put a garden hose in there. Wait for this. Here's where it gets a little Goonie-esque. I'm the only little person of four boys. I probably was like 12 or 13. My cousin's a couple years older than me. And then there's one cousin that's 2 years older than me, one cousin that's a year younger than me, and one cousin that's 2 years younger than me. So there's the age range. Yeah. It's just 14 to like 10, these kids.
Yeah.
Those three guys, my cousins, are holding onto the hose while I shimmy down through the window into this pile of glass, run upstairs, get that door open. Now we've got a mess to figure out there.
Yeah.
Broken a window. We got all our work done. And honestly, in my soul, I was thinking that my uncle would be the one we had to deal with.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like he would be razor angry, and he wasn't. He was so copacetic. My aunt, on the other hand,
Different story.
wow, she was. I think at one point her eyes actually were lit like fire. I mean, it was just like she was steaming.
Yeah, of course.
And mostly, it wasn't even for her. I thought she'd be so chapped about the window. I thought, breaking the glass would be the thing. She was so incensed by the idea of the four of us scheming this garden hose and letting me lower down into. She was so, and as a nurse, granted, I mean, she was a nurse at the university there, so I'm sure she saw everything and anything.
Yeah.
And so the stupidity behind what we did, I think, is what got her so incensed and so infuriated that she was like, how did you think, this was, I can't believe you would be so foolish to lower. I mean, yeah, she was so, and of course, I'm not her direct child, I'm her nephew. So, to have to explain to my parents, well, Aaron was lowered into a pile of glass and cut to shreds, I didn't have any, I had my, sneakers on, whatever.
Yeah.
We were just very careful. I do remember like holding onto the hose. It was kind of like rock rappelling. I was holding onto the hose and had my feet on, some people still have in their home. The wood paneling was the go-to in basements, in a lot of homes in the 80s. And so I remember like literally sneakers crawling down the wood paneling as I'm holding on to this garden hose and lowering into this pile. Oh, it was stupid and yet hilarious. We can laugh about it now. Yeah. But yeah, that was one of the, granted, you don't want your kids to go through that, but just that whole process of being with people and involved and think, and not sitting on this device. And again, nothing against the devices, but the imagination doesn't have a truckload of room.
No.
These devices. And, we're creating films and scripts and stories and television, whatever, and using stuff that I'm including stuff that we did when we were kids, principles and concepts, because our imaginations went everywhere and anywhere.
Yeah. You're right.
We could hit the moon.
Yeah. Yeah. You're right. That's exactly how our generation was, where we would never get hurt. Right. We were
exactly.
We were the type that if you fall, you get back up and you keep trying till you fail. There was no failure in our language. And, we never said, oh, this is not going to happen, because out of a group, you have that one person that's going to say, this is not going to work. Aaron, this is not going to work. But then you have that other person that's like, wait, if we did this and we did that, and maybe we can lower Aaron into it with a hose.
Yeah.
Maybe we can get,
and that's what happened.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was the idea. These kids were pretty strong. I think the oldest cousin, so if he was 14 or 15 at 14, I think he was right at 14. He had started in high school football, and these kids were strapping kids. They were strong, big kids and strong. And so, the three of them are just holding that rope, if you will, that garden hose rope. And while I shimmied down it, it was, we didn't even think twice about doing that. Oh, that's the part that I remember. I forgot about that. So, it was a rectangular window, probably 2.5 feet wide by maybe 18 inches. And so you broke out all the glass, but they're still in the seam of that window.
Yeah.
There's still little shards. So they had taken one of the kids, my youngest cousin, he had taken a shirt and folded it up and laid it over that. We were, for as dumb as it was, we were being as protective and as preventative as possible, yet still being dumb kids, And so we did. You know what? I'll say this. My aunt was not as impressed with our ingenuity as we were.
Oh,
okay?
Of course.
We thought we had pulled off a great feat.
Of course.
She was seething.
Yeah.
But long story short, that was an adventure.
It was.
Those were the kind of things that we created and built and did. And, it led me to, I have to share one more really quickly. Being on the farm, my father had, a steel cable winch, that had a hook on each end,
Yeah.
and it was used to like hold things down or to pulley things. And I got a hold of that, and I found two areas that I could connect it to, and made my own homemade zip line. And I thought that when he saw that, I thought my father, God bless him, I truly, there were times where I'm sure he went through his head. He goes, "Kid going to do next? I mean, what is he going to think of next?" But there were a lot of moments where my dad was like, "Oh, well, we could probably make this better."
Yeah.
And so he had, I don't know what I was using. I think it was just like the end of like a broom handle I had cut off or whatever, and having that hold on to the thing that was zipping down the line, just put that on there. And he's like, "Well, that isn't going to work." So he welds this handlebar thing. He builds this thing for it. And then he thought, it was like, more often than not, when I thought my dad was going to go, "Okay, what the hell is wrong with you?" He was like, "Oh, we could probably make this better." And that part of my dad was pretty cool. My mother was always like, "Oh, you're going to get hurt."
Yeah, of course.
"Oh my God, be careful. Be careful. You're going to hurt yourself," which of course is the rational and logical, and more often than not when parenting in those day and age. I'm not saying that, parents can't have all ends of the spectrum when it comes to parenting, but more often than not in my childhood, my father was like, "We could probably make this better."
Yeah.
And my mother was like, "Oh, you're going to break your necks," and so, but that was part of the summer. Like you talked about the summers, and, I wanted to talk before the show's up. I wanted to talk about like experiences that we had that, like you were talking about the Midnight Slugs.
Yeah.
There wasn't a lot of money involved with that.
No, there wasn't at all.
Yeah. We made something out of nothing.
Yeah. Yeah. And I got a funny story to tell you about money out of nothing. You just remind me of a story when I was 10 or 11, when summer times and I would stay with my parents, I would build an indoor fort, indoor fort. It would be a whole, like a tent, and I would take two chairs, and, I would spend most of my day in that tent, right? No TV, just sitting there talking to myself, myself, all that. And then my dad would come home and he would say, like you said, he wasn't mad, but he was he was tired from work. He worked all day. He wanted his living room. Of course, my fort's in the middle of the living room.
Right.
And he was like, "Hey, Eric, can we put this away?" And then he's like, "I don't mind you doing this, but just can you do it somewhere that's not in the way of where I want to,
in the middle of everything."
I said, fine. So the next day we have a patio. And I decided, let's see what outdoor camping is like. I'm a city kid, never went camping. Right. My mom and dad never took me camping. So I took the same thing, put everything together in the patio, and my mom and dad comes home. They see me out there. They didn't bother me at all. My dad he brought me dinner. My mom was like, "Hey, it's getting late." My dad would say, no, let him enjoy. Let him figure this out on his own. Then my dad said, "Do you want to spend the night here?" And I'm like, "What? You're offering me to spend the night out here?" He brings me out a sleeping bag that I didn't even know we had, right? So he brings me out a sleeping bag.
Right.
He goes, "Go ahead, spend the night here." He goes, "But, he said this "but" thing, and I don't remember exactly what he said, but it's the concept of at 2 a.m, when you start hearing the noise, be quiet when you come back in the house." That's all he said.
Yeah, right. That he knew that at some point your limitations were going to be.
By the time 11 o'clock hit, I was already in the house because I was hearing things that I've never heard inside the house before. But just the fact that he let me do that, the fact that he said, "Go ahead and have this adventure," and he's like, "Who are you talking to?" I was like, "I'm talking to myself. Who else is here?" And I had this nice little fortress that I secured in all four corners to make sure that, if this person comes in, I have this here, and I rigged it up God. To, I had
imagination ran wild.
Fake paper knives, we made little ninja stars out of paper back in the days. I had all that just in case I needed it, in case someone tried to attack my fort. And
you were like your own little adventurer, but you were also, it's kind of Rambo-esque too. We were like, those were the fun moments. Yeah. Those were, like you said, all of a sudden it gets dark and then the sounds start going on.
You hear the sound, exactly.
I'm going to go inside now. It's 11. That's good enough.
Yeah. We have a lot of raccoon raccoons in our area. And we're in the city, but we do have a lot of raccoons.
Right.
And that night, or even prior to that night, we would always hear the raccoons fighting outside. So that's why my dad said, if you hear something, you know, I don't care that you come in, just be quiet. We have one of those big patio doors that
right
on a cold day, it was hard to open because it would get stuck. So yeah, it was one of those days where I had a hard time opening it, but you know, my mom and dad knew that, oh, Eric's done, he's coming in. And my dad was still sitting on the couch. He's like, what happened? Like, I had enough for today.
Yeah. You know? Yeah. The fort idea, I remember. Yeah. The fort was, we did that all the time.
Yeah.
My sister, well, my brother is 10 years younger than me. My sister's 6 years younger than me. So my sister was kind of, you know, when I was 10, she was 4. Yeah. So we were kind of hanging out together and whatever. And I would be able to watch her as well, because, you know, I was 10 and, you know, around the house. And my mother worked in the home, but she had a salon that was part of the house.
Yeah. You mentioned
my father was a farmer, so he was gone all day. And so I was in charge of the bid. My sister was kind of my ally. And so, yeah, we would do stuff like that. We would build forts. And like you said, we didn't have technology in there. We didn't have TV in there. We just added, you know, certain things we felt were necessary. And I remember, like you said, you'd have your arsenal, if you will, in case anybody came in. Nobody was coming in, but in your head, you were going to be attacked by whatever supernatural creatures, whatever, or the raccoons. And so, you know, you were ready to go if you ever needed to. That whole process. And by the end of what you had finished, you know, building the fort, whatever, that was not as amazing. I mean, granted, because it wasn't like you were going to see Star Wars characters show up all the time.
Exactly.
But the whole process is what made that awesome.
Yes.
You know, the building of it and the thinking of it and the scheming of it, and then going, oh, I could be on the patio with this. This would be really cool.
Exactly.
And get even greater. And I'm not saying our kids today don't have that opportunity. They can here and there, but I don't want to say pity. I feel like I feel sorry that they're missing that part of it.
So am I.
And we're all ingrained. Don't get me wrong. I'm ingrained in this stupid thing.
So am I.
And we're all ingrained in technology, and you know, we're always staring at these things, and we answer to them all the time.
All the time, yeah.
Without them, we can't survive.
Yeah.
But that whole summer, you know, exploration. That was what was so cool about getting out of school, is that your hours were different and you could go, you know, and again, in the 80s, it was totally different than it is in 2022.
Yeah.
Where exploration was part of your summer.
I mean,
go find something to do, go do something.
And the movies too. I mean, we talked about the Goonies, you know, and then they gave us a movie like Stand By Me, who I think Stand By Me and the Goonies are the same concept. You had these kids who were doing adventures and finding themselves during these adventures. You as a person, you're like, I can do that. You know,
and we wanted to.
I can do that. Yeah, exactly. So
we saw those movies and we went, oh God, I would love to do that.
I would love to
go out and explore with my friends, and who knows what we might find. And it could be scary, but we're going to do it.
We're going to do it. And if we did do it, you know, we had stories to tell. We had, we have this place called Cat's Eye here in San Francisco. It's the old Sutro Baths area. It's nothing right now. I mean, it's a big tourist spot. I don't know why, because it used to be Sutro Baths. But I remember in 8th grade, or the summer of 5th grade going into 6th grade, me and 2 buddies decided, let's go take the bus to Cat's Eye. And in Cat's Eye, there's 3 caves. The caves are now closed, but back then you were able to go into the caves. So there's 3 caves, and everyone always said, oh, I only made it to the first cave. I never did the last 2. So we were going to be the first kids to go in there and make all 3 caves.
Oh, wow.
We had, back then, $20 flashlights because we wanted that big bright light. We wanted everything. The first cave, mediocre cave, you can see the light at the end of the tunnel. So it wasn't that bad. So we made that cave, came back. The second cave, not that long of a cave. I would say it's about 50 feet in, but it was dark. There was no exit over there. We did that cave perfectly. We get to the 3rd cave, and here we are, teenage kids trying to do this adventure. And we were like, okay, let's go into this cave. We go into the cave. We start hearing what sounds of the waves crashing across. And one of my friends, his name was Larry, he was like, I don't think we should do this, guys. I don't think we should do this. But we're like, no, we have to finish this. We have to go to school and we have to tell everyone that we did all 3 caves. Then we have our other friend. His name was Nick. How are they going to know we actually went there? I mean, anybody can say we went there. We don't have to. This is before cell phones, before cameras.
Right.
We didn't really do anything. And I was like,
how do you prove it?
I was like, you know what? We know we did it. So let's just keep going. So I'm the guy that's like carrying them on. Let's go. Flashlights everywhere. But this cave didn't end. I would say we were about 20 feet in, 30 feet. And 20, 30 feet for kids, that's long.
That's long.
Yeah. So we're like.
In a cave.
And we never, from this day forward, we never finished that cave.
Okay.
And as an adult, I said, I'm going to go to this last cave and see what it was. But then they closed it down. And then we're like, man. But the adventure part of it, the part that I want to go to school and tell everyone this is what I did during the summer.
Well, those adventures and those experiences at that age were our currency.
Yes.
That's what made us worth something.
Yes.
It wasn't, I've got the latest this and the latest that, and I've got $500 pair of shoes.
Yeah.
That didn't mean anything. Really. No. I mean, it meant a little bit. Still, it was the experiences.
Yeah.
I went down a garden hose into a pile of glass this summer, you went through a cave. It was like, what?
Yeah.
And so that's, and that, honestly, I wanted to touch on this. I don't know what our time is left on the show.
We got time.
But one of the things as a little person, the whole lowering into the glass thing, I was the smallest guy, and my 3 cousins were like, and so that was one thing. But like, I was thinking about this, and actually a while back, my daughter had gone to an amusement park, and she's of a certain height as well. She has the same type of dwarfism as I do, and her mother does. She has achondroplasia, and we can't get on every little ride. We can't get on every ride.
Wow. Okay.
I am now, I think 48 inches is the standard cutoff. Okay. And I can't believe I'm talking about, I'm 51 inches tall. But for the longest time in high, in junior high up through so many, years in high school, I couldn't do those things. I couldn't. So to go with friends to like there was about 3 hours from my home was a place called Adventureland.
Okay.
And that was like I wouldn't say a Six Flags wannabe, because it's nowhere near that size and magnitude. It would maybe be a 1/8 Six Flags. Let's just call it a 1/8 Six Flags. And so, but even at that, to go to places like that, and oh God, that led to another story. Have we talked about whitewater yet in our season? We have to. I have to share that before we get off today.
Yes.
Before we close the show, I have to talk about whitewater story. That was insanity, and I was a little fella. Anyway, so to go and you're hanging out with your friends, and they get to get on the roller coaster or whatever, and you get to sit there and wait.
Yeah, you're the sweater guy, right? You're holding the sweater.
Exactly. Can you hold this, because I'm not going to drop this or whatever. And it was discouraging. It's also, I'll tell you this, not to woe is me or anything, but it's also character building. Yeah. Because you realize, hey, things aren't going to always work out the way you would hope, and you adjust with them. Yeah. I feel that to say there was one ride, there was one roller coaster where they let me on, and they probably shouldn't have. And I was hanging on for dear life. It had the bars that came over the top. My feet are not touching the footwell or whatever. I'm hanging off the edge of the seat, and I'm hanging on to that apparatus. It's metal, but it's padded and whatever. I remember it being red. There were red bars that came around, and there were 2 handles here. And I'm hanging on to that mofo for dear life as it's going down. It did not do a full loop. It did not do an upside down, but it had a free fall area that was pretty intense. Wow. And I felt myself hanging into that chest apparatus. That harness. And I'm holding on, and my legs are everywhere. and when we got done with that, I wasn't so upset that I didn't meet the height requirement anymore. I was like, I'm good. I'm good. I'm all right. I'm going to have to go clean out my drawers And I'm good. We're good.
Yeah.
This was fun. I think my eyes were so big, E.T. couldn't have matched them. I mean, I was like, holy hell. And the part of it that was the most, and probably not the wisest idea on my part, but I was a kid. When we would do those, I closed my eyes.
Yeah.
And so that's a ridiculous sensation when you close your eyes. When you can see things, they put everything into perspective. But when you close your eyes and you're free falling, that is like, okay, I'm dying. Okay, I fell out of a plane and I'm going to hit the ground with a pretty decent splat.
Yeah.
And they're going to have to scrape my little carcass up. And we are gathered here today to take Aaron out of the ground. He's even shorter than what he was because, no, I'm kidding. I'm being goofy. But so, yeah, that was those kind of, we didn't do that a lot even though, we didn't. And it's not like we were dirt poor or anything. We just didn't go to those things.
Yeah.
We made something out of nothing.
Yeah.
And so, but that leads me to water. I have to share this story.
Yes.
I'm laughing now. I think I was so freaking scared. I would have been 13.
Now this whitewater, is it a ride or is it actually whitewater?
Whitewater Park here in Atlanta.
Okay, so it's a water park. Okay.
Come down here, my mother and my sister and I. My brother was like 2 years old, and actually he stayed with one of my aunts. She watched him. My mom and my sister and I came to visit a relative that lives here. My aunt actually that lives here. She actually lives, at that time she lived in what's called Woodstock, which is just north of about 20 some miles north of the city.
Okay.
But anyway, we came to visit and we all decided to go to Whitewater in Atlanta, Georgia. Whitewater is an affiliate to Six Flags.
Okay.
So you have the dry park, if you will, and the wet park. They have a ride at Whitewater. I'm assuming it's still there, but it was new. This was the thing. That particular summer was called the Dragon's Tail.
Oh, wow. Okay.
It had, I believe the stupid thing was like 7 or 8 stories high. You climb up these stairs to get to the top of this monster. And there was a set of stairs and then like a platform. There was a set of stairs and then like a little flat area, then another set of stairs. It kept escalating up. But as you got to each platform, there was some type of warning.
Yeah.
If you have a heart issue, do not get on this ride. Then you go up. If you are pregnant, do not get on this ride. If you have back issues, do not get on this ride. If there's a chance you may pass out, vomit, and then whatever, all these ridiculous warnings.
Yeah.
And in most human beings, especially if you're adult, would go, all right, this is a dumb idea.
Yeah.
This is stupid.
Yeah.
So let's go back down. But, we're kids. But my mother was with us. My aunt at the time, she was pregnant, actually. So she couldn't go on the ride.
She was done, yeah.
Yes, so my uncle's there. My aunt, the pregnant aunt's husband is. My other aunt who was visiting from actually Pacific Grove, California. You know where Pacific Grove is?
Yeah, right.
Yeah, she still lives in Pacific Grove.
Nice.
Love Pacific Grove. Ben, I love that area. We've talked about that. I love that area. She's there. My mom, my sister, my aunt has a daughter as well, so similar to my sister's age. So we're all there. Okay, I'm a little fella, this, and I was a little fella at that time, and we had to wear life jackets. Wow. Like if you're such and such a age or height, you have to wear a life jacket to the water park. Okay, so because I'm old enough, but I'm not big enough, I got to wear the life jacket.
Yeah, okay.
The life jacket is very important for this ride, Eric, because my uncle is holding me with the life jacket before I go. And the reason he's holding me with the life jacket is because the water in the little starting area is coming out at like a fire hose force.
Wow. And
you had to hold on to these rails. There are lights, like a stoplight. You go green, all of a sudden red, yellow, and when it goes green, you get to go. I couldn't hold on to the bars. I couldn't reach them. My uncle's holding onto the life jacket while water is careening under me. I am like a windsock on the water, skittling off of it.
Yeah.
All of this is saying dead. All of this is saying Aaron will be at the bottom of this ride in about 30 seconds, dead. mangled, destroyed. Do not go forward. Do not pass go. Do not collect 200. Do not go to the hospital in an ambulance. I mean, that's what that was saying to me. You see the green light. Oh, I missed a major part of the story.
Yeah.
One of those signs that says don't, heart issues, all that, says chances are you will leave the slide at 3 different points. Leave the surface of the slide.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah. There are 3 humps.
Okay.
To the dragon's tail. 3 of them. And when the water is so ridiculous, you did go airborne. I mean, not ridiculously out of the slide. Yeah. It's got this rigid, the rail or the protective plastic shell around the outside of it. So you weren't leaving, but you were leaving.
Yeah, you were popping up. Yeah.
You go off the hump and then hit down. Go off the second hump and hit down.
Wow.
So my uncle is holding on to the life. I look like a ridiculous windsock fluttering under the water. I'm surprised my shorts stayed on. I'll say that.
I was about to ask you about that. Yeah.
Stayed on to leave, but I'll tell you this: after the 3 humps, and then there's a waiting or a retention pool. The waiting pool at the bottom.
Yeah.
I skittled across. It was coming out. I was like a little torpedo. It was coming out so bad. I got to the edge of the retention pool.
Wow.
Most people, you get like halfway there and you kind of sink into the water. I skittled across. I was holding, you had to put your hands behind your head like this.
Yeah.
Again, what of any of this fucking thing sounds fun, right? I'm surprised any of us will. I'm holding like this. 3 bumps out, skittle across. And I swear to you, at first, like I said, I thought my shorts were coming off. It felt like my shorts were up around my ears.
Yeah.
I had the wedgie of all wedgies because you're down on this thing and your body hits the surface. My aunt, who's pregnant, is loving all of this. Every one of us idiots who went down this is looking like we're dead. We're watching our death happen before us. And all the wonderful moments of your childhood pass before your eyes. Whatever. Every one of them, she's laughing uncontrollably. She is in such tears because us idiots. So there's my uncle, my aunt, my mom, and 3 kids. So there's 6 of us. She got to watch that debacle happen 6 separate times. We're all kind of panting after it's done.
Of course.
Oh God, and you're like literally counting the blessed, like, oh, we made it.
We're here.
We're all here. This is good. We're expecting one of us not to.
Yes.
That was one of my summer stories, and I will never forget it. It's like I'm living it, like it happened yesterday. But those bumps.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you'd leave that surface and then come down. And I remember my aunt from Pacific Grove going, oh, that was horrendous, because you kind of crashed back into the slide.
Yeah.
Is this fun? I mean, why are we doing this? So that's my whitewater story.
Probably the most favorite ride of there that everyone's got on, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
People do it all the time. That was I'll say this. All of that story, and since, crazy and wild, there was one other ride, and I won't go into great detail. It was called the Bonsai Pipeline, and it was enclosed. I got to be honest with you. I don't know what it feels like to be sewage in a pipe, but that's what it kind of assumed it was, because you're just slashing around and all over the place. And I was really happy to get out of that one. I thought that one would be, after it was all said and done, I'm like, yeah, that felt like there was a greater chance of death there
than the other one. Yeah.
Water, you're in a tube really tight.
Yeah.
And it wasn't like you're in a tube in a raft. You're in the tube wasn't very big. You didn't have a lot of, I could reach the edges of the tube with my short arms. I was like, this is miserable. I don't want to ever do this again. I probably would do the dragon's tail again if I had to and was held at gunpoint and there was the threat of my family being killed. Maybe I would do the dragon's tail again, but I'm not doing the Bonsai Pipeline.
Wow. You make me want to go out to Atlanta just to go check this out.
If you come here, I'll take you to Six Flags. You got to put your family down that stupid dragon's tail.
Oh yeah. They're going to go. If I'm going there.
That's kind of like the whole, when milk goes bad and you go, oh, this is horrible. Try it.
Yeah.
That's what that is, where people go, oh God, that sounds horrible. So when are we going?
Yeah, exactly. You got me wanting to look on YouTube. And again, with technology, I bet you YouTube has it. So
you know what? I'm going to do it after we get off the show because I wonder if it's still there. I have not been to Whitewater since that, and that was in 1987.
Wow. But this is exactly what we were talking about from the beginning to now, is the adventures we had. I mean, this was an adventure on its own. Thinking about this ride, and I have this thing called the roller coaster effect. It's like, even when I work in my medical field, I tell these patients that we have, it's the roller coaster effect. You get hype over it. You're like so excited when you're in line, and then by the time it's done, you're like, oh, that's it. So that's what I tell a lot of the patients, that these little minor surgeries, it's kind of a roller coaster effect. You build yourself up, and then as soon as it's done, you're like, oh, I'm done. I survived.
Yeah.
I survived.
Yeah.
So
the buildup is always usually more intense than the actual, event itself.
Yeah.
Because our minds work that way.
Yeah. And even like when the little adventures that we had, the little adventures that we did, you building your trench, you guys figuring out a way back in the house, the build up to that, the build up to try to get in the house, the build up to you figuring out what you're going to do with the trench once it's done. Those were the kind of things that I wish some of the kids have now, but
the days of the forts, the days of surviving on the patio. I mean, all of those things,
Yeah. Things
There's
are different.
Missed.
Things are different. My friend and I we're big baseball fans, and we call this baseball era the analytic era because everybody's all about analytics now. Like, the average says this. When back in the days, it's just, hey, you figure out how to hit a curveball. Forget these analytics. But this is what the era is in. This is the direction that this era is going to. And I'm glad you were able to share stories and I was able to share mine because, these are stories that people forget about. They forget that this is the life that we live, the lifestyle.
Well, it doesn't make sense. Some of it doesn't make sense to our kids.
Oh, no. Yeah.
Like, you actually did that?
Yeah.
They're like, yeah. And some of it is out of their control. I mean, there's a good portion of it that's out of their control. We talked about safety. We talked about, hell, Eric, after everything that's going on the last how many weeks, sending your kid to school seems a little unnerving.
Yeah. That was a different.
We're not talking about sending our kids on bikes across town.
Yeah.
I'm talking about taking my child to school and going, is there a chance they may not come home?
Yeah. I mean,
that's sick.
That's something that when you and I were going to school, we never really had to worry about. You guys living in the South or Midwest, you guys, all you had to worry about was tornadoes, right?
Exactly.
That's it. Our era, we worried about earthquakes, and that was it.
Right.
No one ever told you.
You didn't worry about other humans doing horrible things.
You never heard about that. We never heard about like, hey, keep your school. Our schools was never locked. For safety reasons, for fire reasons, we never locked our doors. We weren't a high crime school. In all the schools that I went to, elementary, middle school, and high school, we weren't a high crime area. We didn't have to worry about people coming in there shooting anybody. But again, different podcasts that can go on.
We'll talk about different topic.
But this has been fun. I love the stories and hearing it from your side of the United States. Hearing what it's like. Again, I'm a city kid. My adventure to me is getting on a bus and going across town and seeing what the downtown looks like. For me, that's my adventure. You were able to do the things that, you were a farm kid. And that's
what's great about it. We can connect those.
I would give up my life to do what your life was back then now, because I just want that simple life of just relaxing, doing nothing.
Awesome.
Yeah. Not worrying about anything. So
what a wild show. This has been fun.
This has been fun. Again, follow us on the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast at gmail.com. Also available on the Diary of Little Man's Podcast on Instagram. And we're available on all podcast platforms, also on YouTube. So watch us on YouTube. I would love to see a video of Aaron going down that dragon's tail coming out of the
You have to Google that. Look that up. There's probably video of people doing that.
Yeah.
I can laugh about it now. If that video was there from 1987, I'd be probably super sick to my stomach if we were actually there at that. I was so happy to get off that thing. Anyway, but thanks a lot, Eric.
Thank you, Aaron. See you guys next week.
We'll talk next week.
All right. We are the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast. See ya.
Bye.
You've been listening to the Diary of the Little Man's Podcast.